Good morning, Mr. Dewey Freeman.
Good morning, Mr. Mark Sylvester. How the heck are you this
I'm so good. We are the Elder Council. We're here to talk about the things that I've envisioned. I explain what our show is about, and I say, okay, so we live in a world where there's a time machine, and you can go back and you can talk to your 15-year-old teenage self, your 25-year-old young adult, your 35-year-old champion, your 45-year-old, oh, I'm so tired guy, your 55-year-old guy who's now a manager, and it's like, your 65-year-old who's just thinking about what's Act 3 look like. You can go back in time and talk to yourself, but would you listen? That's what our show's about.
So, about people listening to themselves.
Because again, when you and I love, we listen to each other. We've developed a strong friendship and we trust each other. We've built that up over time, one brick at a time, as we said in our first couple of episodes. And we have developed trust. Do you trust yourself?
Okay. I ask people that a lot.
Really?
Oh, yes. It's about.
Well, it's a thing. That's a thing, Doc.
That's a thing. Do you trust yourself? So, I have my definition of what trusting yourself means.
I want to hear it. Well, the reason I say that, here's the reason I say that is in explaining what this idea is about, is we got a couple of elders. I won't say old guys, because we're not. We've already self-described ourselves in our late 20s, energetically and emotionally. But we're elders. And so if we did go back and could open that time machine and step back and say, I need to talk to my 15-year-old self because you're about to make a fucking terrible mistake. And do I just come back and say, this is what's going to happen, and then just back off? I don't want to get into any of those time machine discussions about how you can't change something because it alters everything. I'm going to park all that. That's all true. But if you could just say, go in there with open eyes, Kat, because this is what's going to happen. I think our show is listening to those kinds of stories. But it gets back to, if you could do that, would you say, hey, old man, get out of here. I got shit to do. Even if it's you, do you trust yourself?
So a couple of responses. Yes, I do trust myself. And two, I actually craved the idea and wanting an old person to talk to, an elder to speak to. And we've talked about this a little bit before, the difference between an elder and an older, where the older doesn't learn as they go. And there were many times in my life where I lamented that I don't have an elder to speak to. I don't. Even at 20, I didn't have a 40-year-old to speak to. And at 40, I didn't have a 60-year-old to speak to or listen to, or somebody to throw something around with. Or so the answer is yes. If when I was 23 and I could listen to myself from this perspective of being 71, yes, I would have listened to myself, or I at least would have considered it. And the piece around trusting myself involves, I think that's a really big deal. And many of the people that I work with they literally will say, well, I trust so-and-so, and I trust so-and-so, and I trust this person, and I trust this person, but I don't trust myself. And it's like, my question is what does trusting yourself mean? And my simple response is, trusting yourself means that you can do whatever you need to do when you need to do it, under whatever circumstance you're under. And we don't know what that's going to be. That's why it's called trust.
So a rephrase of that is you trust your ability.
You bet. If all of a sudden, I mean, I make a good living, I am well respected, but let's say all of a sudden that went away. If I needed to do whatever I needed to do what I need to do, I know that that's a lot of words. It's like, could I go work at Home Depot? You bet.
So we talked about this a few shows ago. It wasn't that you would lack resources. You have an abundance of resourcefulness. So you trust your ability.
Yes,
So,
exactly.
so another frame of that because you said, do you trust yourself?
Mhm.
The concept of this time machine question, this rhetorical question is, would you trust yourself?
My answer is yes. Because I have.
Hmm. So then a different frame as another window into this would be, do you trust your judgment?
Yes, and it doesn't always matter.
What does that mean?
Well, because I trust myself. I don't always know that my judgment is going to be correct. I don't always know that. Every judgment, every decision that I make, and this is where a level of risk comes into living,
Hmm.
is am I going to make judgments that have no risk involved?
And just because we have such a ton of baggage around the word judgment, can we say decisions?
Yes. Yes. Yeah,
Do you trust
judgment,
your decisions?
right. Very good. Judgment is, in the context that we're talking about it, is judgment is not that piece of, oh, I'm going to judge you or I'm going to judge myself. My hair's going to fade
Understood. I just
today.
want to
So
be
there,
real clear for our listeners.
no, I think that's a very good clarification. So well,
It's discernment.
do I trust the choices I make?
Ooh. Hmm.
The answer is yes. And the answer is, I don't always know what's going to happen.
Hopefully that's that risk. That's that adventure part. I'm going to choose to take this path because it's got a little tad of the unknown in it. And that might be kind of fun. I don't know what's going to happen, but I'm choosing the unknown. I'm not, I'm choosing it. I don't know what's, yep. It's, I talk about improv all the time, and I have no idea what the scene is going to be about. All I know is my scene partner looks forlorn, and I need to find out why. And so we're going to do a little 3-minute dance, and we're going to figure out why my scene partner is forlorn. I remember distinctly when my son was 12 or 13, around that age, enough to where we could have a good conversation. And I had a conversation with him about choices. And that at that time in my life, and I don't know if that's still true, but mostly true, the most important skill I wanted him to understand that he had was the ability to make choices. And life was just, each day was a series of choices. Get good at making them.
One of the things I talk about, and this leads to so many things. One of the things I talk about, people often ask me, what does health mean? What are you moving toward? Health to me means that we have choices, that we're not being reactive. I have the choice to enter into something? Do I have the choice to go to sleep later or earlier? Do I have the choice to respond in a particular way to something, or am I just being reactive to something?
Meaning you, I have no choice. I have to act. The external forces are so immediate that I need to get out of the way. I can't choose to just, yeah, I'm fine. I have to get out of the way of this,
I got to
whatever
do
this thing is.
something. Yeah. So let's say
Huh, interesting.
that somebody, let's say that I'm talking with a friend and something happens where they get angry at me about something. Is my reaction going to be just purely defensive and reactive? Or do I actually have a choice about how I want to react to that?
And you suggesting that if you are healthy, you know you have a choice. And if you're not healthy, you're just going to react because that's just in our reptilian brain to react.
Right. I'm not even going to the point of saying you're not healthy. I'm just saying that I'm talking about movement toward health.
Okay.
I have an underlying
Okay.
belief that we all, I don't walk around thinking that we have some pathological thing going on with all of us.
Okay. Okay.
And yes, you're right. Instead of a reactive process of going, oh, well, fuck you. It's like, if I mean, sometimes that's one of the possible choices, by the way.
Sure.
But there's also 20 or 30 other possible choices. I might get curious. I might ask you what you mean. I might have a pause for a little bit. I actually might respond with a thoughtful answer. I might, all of those kinds of things. And then with that, however I do respond, am I able and willing to do whatever I need to do when I need to do it, i.e., however that person responds to me?
So that the rhetorical question you ask yourself, am I ready, able, and willing? So let's just look at the middle word there, able. Do you, I'm talking to our listener, do you feel as if you have everything you need to be able to very rapidly make that discerning, to make that choice? Like, here's all my options, to your exact example. These are the ways I could react. This is going to be the one I'm going to do. So a little risk analysis, right? I'm going to, like, if I do this one, I'm going to get hit. If I do this one, I'm going to get laughed at. If I do this one, I'm probably going to, that's going to create an opening, which is we know is a term amongst us. It's going to create an opening for resolution. How does someone, we're deep into this now. How does someone inventory that ability to be discerning and decisive? There you go. That's the question, Doc.
Well, I don't know that always in the moment that we can inventory that.
I think in a reflective, during a sit, maybe we could reflect and meditate on that and figure that out, so that when that happens, because you're going to react. And the trick is, rather than escalating something, can I de-escalate something? Again, I'm going towards maybe an argument, right? That we get in a relationship or with an employee or a, in some kind of heated thing. How do we, here's where elders help. How do we, of all the choices I have, pick the right one? Is the right one the one that creates an opening towards resolution?
Sometimes.
Yeah. I answered my own question in my head.
Yeah, you did. The right one is the right one for you in the moment.
Yeah, it's relative.
With knowing that whatever comes from that decision, that you still are able to inside go, yeah, boy, I can handle whatever comes.
Mm.
Um, there is a process of, do we make choices to close something down so we don't have to feel,
Ooh.
or
Ooh.
experience something, or do we make choices to allow ourselves to feel and experience something? Because let's say that you got angry at me or challenged me, let's say that, and I could go, oh, well, you're right, Mark. And I could shut myself down. Or you could challenge me on something and I go, I'm not so sure that that is exactly what's happening.
So I'm going to go back to improv, which I do all the time. And it's the difference between the yes and or yes because. Yeah, wow. You challenged me, and yes, you're right. And I add to that, and now we've gone down that positive. There's a, oh, how do I feel about that thing? As opposed to, no, I'm not.
Yeah, like what?
Right?
Yeah,
No.
that piece.
And which, to your point, which stops it. And the what you suggested was interesting. I don't want to feel that thing.
Right. Many times
Wow.
we make choices to shut something down so that we don't have to experience what happens when we make a different kind of a choice.
So is the challenge to the listener, the next time that challenging, whatever that means, conversation comes up or sentence comes out of someone else's mouth, to make the choice, just as an experiment, to maybe they're right, maybe I am being a dick right now, maybe or maybe I fucked up, or what, or whatever I'm being challenged at. Maybe I'm not seeing their point of view. I'm something that they've observed. Choose to go for maybe first, take a breath, right? Engage your parasympathetic system, right? Your, would you call it the vagal nerve? Is that it?
It's polyvagal theory and
Polyvagal.
vagus nerve.
Yes, thank you. I'm so glad you know these things. But engage that and try that. I think that's a great choice to make.
So in relationship, I love where you're going with this. In relationship, one of the inner questions to ask ourselves is, are we doing whatever we're doing to promote that relationship or to inhibit that relationship? If you challenge me on something, no, that will not promote our relationship.
Right.
If you challenge me on something and go, say more, please, let me learn about what's happening from your perspective. That will drop us deeper and deeper. Whether it be, so 2 examples. I mean, whether it be you're asking your partner or your wife or whomever you're with to mess around and be sexual with you, because you're wanting that with them. Whether it be, I'm on the fire department here. A conflict came up in the fire department and the chief was explaining to me his perspective, and I kept asking, so tell me more about this, well, fill me in on that. And it actually changed my mind. I'm at least part of my thinking on how to handle a particular situation. Mostly because 1, I heard him out. 2, I got more information. And I also know that I changed his mind on some levels. It was like, it could have been no. And I have the power. I'm the president of the board up here on the fire department. I have the power to go, no, you do this. So, and actually that would have been control. So part of what we're talking about, and this is just a reminder to people, the difference between power and control, because we're talking about trusting ourselves, where control is that thing we do when we don't trust either another or ourselves. Power is the ability to influence and be influenced in contact and relationship. So the idea of choice and the idea of power actually, interestingly enough, go together.
That, because the other side of that coin is not being able to choose means you are not in control.
Well, not being able to choose disallows influence.
Yeah, there you go. Wow.
Because influence and control are two different things.
Right.
I want to influence you, and I want to be influenced by you. I want both of those things to be happening simultaneously.
Most people don't think of the second part of that sentence, sir.
That is true. I.e., relationships go to hell. If I am not allowing myself to be influenced by those that I love, and frankly, even by those that I love the most, those relationships will ultimately end.
Wow. That, I mean, we could just stop there. I don't want to stop there. I want to keep going, but maybe listener pause and think on, just rewind the last 15 seconds and listen to that piece again.
When you, and thank you, I don't want to stop here either, and we could. When your children, when your wife/partner, when your business partner, when your best friend has something going on for them, it's very risky to allow yourself to be influenced. That's where you actually really truly do have to trust yourself. It's also can be very vulnerable. Stating, well, I'll just stop there for right now.
You know what's interesting to me, Duey, about the collective conversation we've been having for half a year now is the thematically there's 5 or 6 key ideas that seem to ebb and flow and weave through. This gets back to my, if I've said this, I'm going to repeat it. Thinking about this collection of conversations as a little room off of the main library of life.
Yes.
And when I walk into that room, there's 5 rows of books. One is called Trust. One is called Influence and Power. There's these 5 things. And when we walk down there, there's all of our conversations or little bits of our conversations in there that I can, there's a reading on this piece of that. Because while we have had, I think, 28 or 29 conversations to date, and they're all very distinct, there are these threads that pull, which is one of the things we've talked about doing as a book, which is to pull this out. And so my library metaphor of that works really good for my brain, right? So I kind of want to think about where are the gaps in the library? and the only way I can figure out where the gaps are is to kind of audit what we've done and say, okay, library's looking really good here. We need to dig deeper in these areas. There's some mining to do. So I'm going to take that as an action item to kind of figure out that piece. Because I know for myself, my 25-year-old self could talk to my 68-year-old self, it would say, dude, would you write a book, please, so I could read it?
Yes. So this is perfect. I cannot tell you how many people have asked me that very question. When is your book coming out? Will you write a book so I can read it? I just 2 or 3 days ago got a thing on Facebook, the Facebook Messenger of, I was in your class in 2002 and I can't find my notes, and where's your book? And I have lamented not, when I think about it, my heart sort of sinks and goes, when am I going to do that? Why haven't I done that?
Well, we're doing an oral version of it right now. And we talked about this months and months ago. Traver said, hey, where's the book? And we're writing it right now. So there you go.
And the piece of that has to do, you and I had originally talked about the idea of legacy.
Yeah.
And that's something that I, and we're talking about trust. And one of the pieces, and I mean, I'm going to be really vulnerable on air here. It's like, I don't know that I've fully trusted myself to write a book. That I've fully trusted myself to take that risk.
I'm gonna. So I was challenged years ago to start writing that stuff down, and I made a commitment 15 years ago to have a book, to my book, just the story of me, not for anybody other than to give my 3 grandchildren, it was 1 at the time, to give to my grandson on his wedding day. So it was 15 years ago. So he would have been 0. He would have been just born. And I said, it was at an event, and I was like, I'm going to do that. And it wasn't for another 5, 6, 7 years that actually started that project as an infinite of another thing. And now I'm writing every day again. And I find that I'm better this way. I don't know. I don't know what I think. I haven't said it yet.
Right.
And I think that this is going to help both of us be able to get those things out, and it ends up being a collaboration, which is something we both love so much, that collaborative part of it. So this may be 1 in a row for us once we get it in ink, but it'll already be it'll be out of date. Because that's the thing I love about this, the oral history and things like StoryCorps, and where I was thinking around legacy is listening to the stories of the elders that lead into the lessons. I want to hear the story of what got my dad to fall in love with the outdoors and had his whole life spent outdoors. It's like, I get it. I would love something happened. Someone took you on a trip and you said, this is what I want to do. I got a thing called a post book. We've heard of Facebook. So there's a company that does a post book where they will, for not too much money, pull every photo post you did for the last 10 years and assemble it into a book of pictures. Right here, I just got it. And this is 10 years with the captions of every post I did.
Oh my God.
And in looking at it, it's like, I want to order one for both my kids. Say, hey, this was what I was doing for the last 10 years. These were in a different way. These were the things that I cared to share with my network.
Yes.
Which is different than, that's a different, people didn't do that before, but and every one of those is a story.
Everyone is.
Every single, I looked at the whole thing this morning. I went through page by page, and each one, like there's one that's I went to Dubai at Christmas time 10 years ago. And there was a Christmas tree made of it's called a croquembouche, but little cream puffs that were different colors. It was as tall as I was. And I'm a chef and a baker, and I appreciate it. And it's like, that brought back just like I could write for a couple of hours about that trip. And I think that legacy is the collection of stories that we leave as memories in the people we've told them to.
Exactly.
And I want more stories.
Right.
And the people I want them from are dead. And I can't get them. So I want to make sure that I leave stories.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Didn't think that was going to happen.
That's okay. Just stay with this for a minute, because this is really important. This conversation is a story. And for whomever is listening to this, see, and I'm talking to the listener right now, what just happened was that you, Mark, shared something very, very deep in and from your heart. And you trusted yourself to do that. And my encouragement is that every listener trusts themselves to do that. And leave stories for the people that you love, and share your stories while you're living. Because there will be a time where we're not here to do that. And the loss of not having those stories from the people that we love is a really big loss.
Dewey Freeman, I love you, my friend. Thanks for bookending that and landing the plane for us, for our listener too. So go find someone you love and tell them an important story.